Hello and welcome. Today I will explain about how to start a painting. I prepared some basics. In the background you see the image I will be painting. It is my daughter. She is pouring some water into glass in our living room, but I thought it was an interesting composition to start with, so for now I will be painting that one. I started out with a canvas. The size is 60 by 80 centimeters in the vertical direction, so it's size-wise I guess normal. I grounded it with oil paint in a grayish color, therefore I used some burnt sienna. I'll start with my palette, would be easier. Yellow ochre, ultramarine blue, titanium white, and liquid as a medium. I mixed those to some extent to give it a brownish shade, and for now I will be more focusing on the next step. What I did is I painted the grid with boxes of approximately 5 by 5 centimeters, and on the outside they are bigger or longer. So this one, for example, is 10 by 10 centimeters. Sorry for everyone who counts in inches, but I think one can say that centimeter is somewhat like 2.54 inches, if I'm correct. And so you do the calculation stuff if you want to, but I don't think that's necessary, since I will be doing this painting myself and people will be doing other paintings. Then I painted the grid. I can show it in the background. I used Photoshop to make a grid as well in it, so I can actually see what I'm doing. After that I put up the composition. So why do I use a grid? I don't always use a grid, especially when the paintings are smaller sizes. I do everything freehand. But for now, I think for this explanation, it would be nice to show how this grid works, because it makes it more easy for people who are not that experienced in painting freehand to make sure everything has the right shape. Although it's by any means recommended to paint, draw and practice freehand to learn proportions of a body. I like to do that a lot when I have spare time, but these days I do not have many opportunities. So I will be doing from photo as well. As you can see, when I look at the face, you can just measure this box, for example. This one over here resembles this one, and so on. So I can build up the composition and make sure everything is in the right spot. So what I also think is very important when you take your own pictures, that you know that there is no how do you put it? That everything is in shape. You know that you sometimes have this lens deformities, which can happen when you take a picture yourself with a camera. And the best one to avoid is to take a portrait pancake lens when taking pictures. Otherwise, just it's advisable to when you take a picture to move back a little from the object, in this case my daughter, so you have more space between you two, which makes the possibility for a lens deformity much smaller, and you have more space, so you can crop any way you want later on. Because if you take a too small frame beforehand, you don't have the opportunity to crop the right way. It's better to photograph too much than too little. So that was about the photograph in general. I'm always very fond of the way the light works. I'm going back to the modus. So as you can see, the light's coming in from a window on this side, and it plays with her skin tones, you see, everywhere. And there's some glow from, I think, from the cupboard behind her, which I'm not sure if I should paint yet, but I'll come to that later. So when I start out, I have this basic palette I already explained about, although I mostly use Mars yellow instead of yellow ochre, but it's hard to get by for some people. And then I just mix a color in the basics, like when this composition is there. So what do? I start out with the darkest, let's say the hair area, for example. So I mix ultramarine with burnt sienna, and it gives this nice shade that resembles black. You can make it cooler by adding more ultramarine, or you can make it warmer by adding more sienna, burnt sienna. It's very important because there's also raw sienna, and that's a whole different shade. It's more close to, I think, to yellow ochre. I may have never used it, or too long ago to remember. That's what I do. So I take the dark colors. Of course, it is just the basics, because what I don't want to do right now is to move into detail already. So I take like this kind of basic shapes that are to be filled with one color. Like this is the hair, for example. And I have this filbert brush, which is not the smallest size, quite a big size, so it doesn't take up too much of my time. But for example, the background, I would recommend to start out with a grayish tone for myself. So I'd like the tone that's already there. Maybe a bit more Mars yellow or yellow ochre into it, to give it a bit of a greenish glow. You probably need 2 layers to make sure that the grit has disappeared, although I painted it very thinly, and I just rubbed away any paint that wasn't necessary with a piece of cloth. So this is the fastest way of going now. And the brush strokes go in all directions, not one in particular, just all of them. I think I would make it a bit lighter at the bottom. It gives this artificial depth if you have this gradient. Oh, so out of view. about that. And you don't have to mix the exact color every time, because you can just mix it into each other. And I like to have some variations even in the background, you know. Maybe even some brush strokes, I'm not sure yet on how to work on it. So this is what I do for now. Over here we have a very dark curtain. I should have done that before, I will do it now. With the same mixture as you are used to. I'm painting black. See, I like to paint my thumb as well. That's okay. It's all the way down to the table. Yeah, something like that. Over here we have some dark spots as well. So a background shouldn't take too long, you know, you can just also add a bit of light at places where you want to be more illuminated. Then for the skin, I think the color is more or less done with a bit of blue and some sienna. Also, in this case, this is just starting out, you know. It's a layer that will evolve when I start painting the arms. Yeah. Don't make it too light though, especially not at those places where there's a lot going on. But it shouldn't be too dark either. And that's the thing with those filled with brushes, you can just move sideways. Places where there is not enough space for the brush in its width, so you can just move sideways and then reach the same amount of effect. Remember that all the information you have on the canvas shouldn't be too much. You know, you shouldn't move too much into detail in this first layer. It's all about having just basic shapes. Even when I look at the lines of the eyes, you know, if I have some information left, it's more than enough to know where they are. That's it. So this is this looks quite unassuming, and that's the way I have to deal with the painting anyway. So start with something unassuming and to move it up the ladder a bit. For the dress, I think it's best to start out with a bluish shade as the kind of color that is, when you look at over here, you can see it. So it's in the shadow area, it's the white part, but for the red I will add some color later on. I think this is better to start out with a shade like this one. It looks quite bright over here, so maybe I have to darken it a bit. I think just when you add a little bit of sienna, you mix your white and blue, it won't be that vibrant blue. We don't need it to be that vibrant. So that's the way I work on my painting. Yeah. Step by step, and every area watches that I paint. I just search what's the most present color for here. For example, it's kind of like yellow ochre. I want it to be more brownish, so I painted a bit more brownish. For now, nothing is exact science. It's all about having to fill the areas, which makes it way easier in a later stage to get it all done the right way. So I think that's it for now, for the explanation, because those are the basics, in fact. It's the way I build up my paintings. And from here I will work on many different areas with goes way more into detail than it does now, of course. But starting out in this crude way gives you more space to build up the painting. And sometimes it's even enough if you have 1 or 2 layers background like this. Could just happen. So, if you have any questions, you know how to reach me. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.